Greetings and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ plus authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is JR Dawson. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am well. I cannot believe it's like midsummer already.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I know.
End of Pride.
I know. And here we are. What the heck happened? So, did you have a good month?
Yeah, it was good. It was busy. I wrote all weekend, so I wasn't able to go to the Twin Cities Pride, which was sad. But we are going to put up our flag today on the last day.
Awesome. All right. Better late than never, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Our flag, we need a new flag. It is looking pretty ragged. It's like really faded and starting to get ragged on the edges. So it's
that
time
with all of the sun in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, right? So, JR, let's talk about your soon-to-be released novel called The Lighthouse at the Edge of the World. That is an amazing name, and it brings up a whole lot of connotations. So, let's tell us what that's about.
Yeah. So, the very, very short pitch is that it's a sapphic Orpheus retelling. So it takes place in Chicago, where the Great Lakes, this specifically Lake Michigan, is the river Styx, which in Greek mythology is the river that leads dead souls to the underworld. And so one of our main characters is Nera, who is the daughter of the ferryman of the dead, and she's going to be taking over her dad's job. And everything's great and dandy until one night she finds on her boat a very live woman who has snuck onto the boat to try to find somebody that she lost. She followed kind of this ghostly song there, and is somehow able to see the ghost, somehow able to access the world of the ferryman. And that kind of spins Nera off into this adventure where her world kind of opens up and the line between living and dead kind of gets blurred.
Oh, that sounds pretty ominous, is it?
I mean, I think I call it my joyous grief book. So it is about death. And there's definitely some stuff in it. Like, clearly it there is somebody who has been killed in a pretty awful way. But it also has like talking dogs and deep dish pizza. So, yeah.
So, when you say deep dish pizza, is it like Chicago based?
Oh yeah. So the whole thing takes place on the shores of Chicago.
Okay.
Nera lives in a station for the dead that only the dead can see, that is on the shores of Lake Michigan. And the live woman, her name is Charlie. She lives in Chicago. So it's got a lot of Chicago history. We talk about like the Chicago fire, and the Jewish history there, the current history of the city, the different contrasts and juxtapositions of its culture and of its geography and topography. Wow. Yeah, it's my love letter to Chicago.
Wow. Did you have to do a lot of research, or were you already pretty familiar with Chicago?
I mean, I lived in Chicago, and my family came from Chicago, to where I was born in Omaha before I moved to Chicago. And so I've just always really loved the city. So a lot of it I kind of already knew, and I'm also kind of a nerd. So when I moved to Chicago in 2006, I was like, well, someday I might want to put a story in 2006. So I collected a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of held on to that. And now 20 years later, I was able to, kind of open up that treasure trove and see what the skyline used to look like and what certain buildings were where and language and, what was hot that year and things like that. So it was a real boon I think that I knew about the Great Chicago Fire, but I didn't really understand how awful and destructive it had been.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest piece of research I had to do on the city itself was that night or that couple of nights where that all that went down.
Okay. Wow. That is pretty amazing that you kind of tucked away for almost 20 years all of this information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you a saver?
I kind of, but I also don't like to keep stuff that doesn't spark joy,
Uh
like
huh. Okay.
so yes, and I think that I also just like to pay attention to what's happening too, like take notes.
Mm-hmm.
So while there's different like documents and articles and things like that, like there's also just me being in my teens going, okay, it is 2003. What is big right now? Like if I ever write a book that takes place in 2003, what music are they going to be listening to? Like I remember the first time I was like thinking about historical fiction, like in this kind of contemporary mindset, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, it was what, 1997, and the Hale-Bopp comet was out, and I was like trying to document everything about Hale-Bopp so I could write about it when I was older. And I was
Wow.
like writing a little short story about somebody in I think 2019, and like trying to figure out what does 2019 look like and what would they look back on 1997 and
Wow.
see think. So it's always kind of been like this weird thing about me.
Yeah, like you're really into time and uh I guess time hopping, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool. I remember in 1976 when I was a little kid, I had made a. Do you know composition books? Do you remember? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
there was like 1976 was the bicentennial, and they had a
Oh.
bicentennial composition book, and someone bought one for me, and I made a little scrapbook of,
Oh.
and I wish I had it. Oh my god, I wish I had it. I don't know where it is. It was probably in my mom's attic, and when they cleaned it out, they probably just like meh, pitched it.
That's sad.
Yeah, I know. I would love just to see that composition book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love like composition books and notebooks and stuff. So,
Yeah.
so you you described your novel as a joyous grief book, and
Hmm.
when I was reading about it, it was described as a piece that focused on grief and loss, but it sounded like eventually the focus was on healing, and I
Hmm.
imagine that's where the joy comes in. Um, and I'm wondering, like, have you experienced personally that kind of grief and loss that you've written about? And do you think that as an author, um, one needs to experience those depth of emotions, like in order to write about them and do a good job of that?
Oof. That's a good question. Okay, so for the first part of that question, yes, I feel like there's been a lot of different kinds of grief that I've had to experience, like loss of, my friend has passed, my grandma, who is like a third parent to me, passed in 2013, and it's been 12 years and it still sucks just as much as it did the day it happened.
Mm-hmm.
My friend passed in 2014, and like I think about them every day, and it's
Oh, I'm so
they went
sorry.
way too soon. Um and I also like, like when my grandma got sick, we lost a home, we lost the apartment, and like it was overnight, and that was when I was like 12, and that sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one thing that really infused itself to this book was in the middle of writing it, my family had to relocate from Omaha to Minneapolis for sanctuary laws. So it happened
Oh.
very fast, and I wasn't expecting it. And so the summer of 2023, my debut book came out, and when I wasn't on the road promoting that, I was at home packing up our life and trying to fit it into a U-Haul. Um, So like there's definitely like there was I remember one night I was, we were throwing away furniture and how are we saying goodbye to this furniture? And then I would go and I would write, a scene that took place in this station in this book. So it was definitely a way for me to spend a little bit more time with the people who I've lost, but also try to process what was happening at this point, and at this time.
Yeah.
And as for whether or not you have to experience, that's a really good question. So like my little drama teacher hat goes on, and I'm like, well, catharsis, catharsis is created, storytelling is created, so audiences don't have to go through this in order to understand it and have it explained. Like that was what the Greek, going back to Greek mythology, like that's what the Greeks thought when they were putting on these tragedies, is that it allowed the audience to expand their understanding of the human condition without having to have that massive loss or, a murder or, whatever it was that was happening on stage. And it created empathy, and pathos. So I think that's what I think about audience. When it comes to the person who writes it, I don't know. Like, I think that we all experience some kind of grief. Like, even if we downplay it in our own heads, like, oh, well, but I remember like saying goodbye to our couch really sucked, it wasn't losing my grandma, but it was still like something that I had to process.
It sounds like it was pretty abrupt for you too, which makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big difference between choosing to move and having to move.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that probably plays a role in the depth of feelings. Yeah. And, you mentioned empathy, which is something that, I think I see on social media a lot, that people are promoting empathy and telling others, we need to have empathy. Do you think that something like that empathy is really like that human beings are losing their empathy, and how does writing and literature play a role in that?
I think that honestly, like, well, okay, so that's another hard one, right? Because in some ways, like technology divides us, or like with all this ChatGPT AI stuff, or like the way that different marketing this and that's in social media kind of funnels us into our little echo chambers. So I think that there is a lack of empathy, but there also is a big swell of empathy, because we saw, like, when Twitter was Twitter and not what it is currently, but we saw a lot of empathy, like when it came to when there was like a blackout or some kind of rising or upheaval in a country that was not the United States, where I am and you are, like, we got to see on the ground footage of what was going on, so I think that social media connects us in a way that we were not connected 100 years ago, for sure. And that it isn't just the papers or the people with the microphone that gets to show us what people are going through. And I think that we also see that in literature, is that while there are miles to go before we sleep, like, I feel like it's a much more inclusive stratosphere than it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and who is getting to tell these stories. So I think that empathy has grown, and I think that through books, we definitely understand one another a little bit more. I think that if somebody can see a character who isn't like them being treated as a human and being a hero, and a main character, like the center of their world, like that causes empathy, and also empathy for ourselves when we see ourselves in a character. I think that's a big game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, if you can see someone, even like in a book that's being mistreated, and maybe they're totally different from you, just the fact that, you've kind of grown to like this individual and they're being mistreated, yet they're so different from you. I think that helps produce that feeling of empathy, and then you, as a reader, you take that out into your world with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jen, your first novel, I'm just shifting gears here a little bit. Your first novel was The First Bright Thing, and it won a Goldie Award. Like, you won right out of the gate.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Tell us about the novel, and what was that whole thing experience like for you?
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, it's a time traveling novel. So it is, if the X-Men and the Greatest Showman kind of mushed together in 1926, it is about these queer folks who have this magical power called the spark, and they use these powers in order to create a literal magic circus that bops around the country, finding somebody who needs to see something in the art, like might be, a picture or a song or, whatever it might be. And they go there and they try to change their life in a small way by inspiring them with the circus. Everything's going great until one day they find out that there is this guy who they have a history with, who wants to bring the circus down and kill them all. And he's on their tail. He's stalking them. And also their clairvoyant Spark, the woman who can see into the future, sees that they are in 1926 and the war is not over. They're just in a respite. And that bad things are on the way. So the question becomes, like, how do they not live in fear of this thing from the past coming and stalking them? And also, how are they going to help people as they kind of barrel towards World War II? So, it's fun for the whole family. It's a light.
Yes. A light book. Easy read.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It does. It sounds intense. And, I love that time travel aspect of going back in time. And that's so cool. And what was that like to win the Goldie? And did you go to the award ceremony?
Yeah, I did. So it was, weirdly enough, in the Twin Cities that year. And we had just moved to the Twin Cities. So that was kismet. Yeah. It was really nice. Like, it was a win after a really hard year. It is very stressful to have a book out there. Yeah. And especially, like, even more stressful when you're trying to move while that is happening. Yeah. And during the move, I broke my foot. So that was also stressful.
Man.
And so it was just one thing after another that year. And so I got nominated for Best Debut Novel and Best Science Fiction Fantasy. And I won both, and that was super cool. And I was not planning on winning anything. But when I had first gotten the book deal, like back during the pandemic, my wife bought me this really beautiful dress. And she's like, at your first award ceremony, you'll wear this.
Aww.
Oh, honey, I don't think that's going to happen. But I wore the dress. And so I had my little, like, written out, speech all sweaty in my pocket because it had pockets.
Were you on crutches?
No, this was this was like 6 months after I got out of the boot.
Oh,
so
good. All right.
It's good to go. I did get COVID that next week, but that's fine. We had a little respite.
I think a lot of people got COVID after that.
Yeah. So yeah, I got to go up there and give a speech, and I gave a speech talking about the migration that had happened up to the Twin Cities, and that was really meaningful. I had no speech for the second one because I didn't think I was. I did not have two speeches, but it was really great, and I think it's important to celebrate the wins because there's so much stress and strife in this profession.
Yeah. Heck yeah. And you know what? I always think that, like, writing is just such a solitary affair, and it's nice when everyone can come together, in
Oh,
one place and, celebrate and, just kind of have a little fellowship.
oh yeah. I'm really looking forward to going to Albany in a few weeks.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. So, do you think that that was like a help or a hindrance, like to have your first novel like win such a prestigious award? Like, how did that impact your work and on your second novel, I guess?
I think it actually helped.
Yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I was like, oh, people are reading the book. Like I got this like it was a tangible thing that the type A millennial could hold.
Hmm.
So that was a really big help. Yeah, no, the second book, like I people talk about sophomore novels being really hard, and like I think that the story itself wasn't hard. Um, and like I think it did help to know that like yes, it was under contract, like yes, it was going to be published, like it was all set up. I just needed to finish it. It wasn't so much that made it difficult. I think it was the move that you're going through this like big major change in your life,
Hmm.
and yet you have to sit down and still write. So
Yeah.
I think that that's reflected in the book of like having to continue on with life even while you're trying to process stuff.
Yeah. That's hard. That's hard, especially like just it's not something that where anyone else is holding you accountable but yourself, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. So when you write, are you writing with like an LGBTQ plus audience in mind, or are you like aiming for a broader audience? What's in mind when you sit down and actually do write?
Yeah, I love this question. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot because I a couple of months ago read a book that just like wowed the hell out of me. Notes from a Regicide by Isaac Fellman was a book that is definitely my favorite of the year so far.
And what's it
Um,
called? Notes from a.
Notes from a Regicide by Isaac Fellman.
Okay.
I believe he won the Lambda for his first book, and this is the second book that he has out. He's a trans author,
Okay.
and it's like trans Les Mis, but like in the future and with art and a regicide. So he wrote this book for a queer audience. Like he doesn't sit there and explain things. He does not have footnotes. He's just like, well, clearly you have a 101 because you are a queer person, and so
Okay.
now we're just gonna tell the story.
Okay.
And I really loved that. And I started thinking about like, what do I do? And I think that I am writing it because of the queer audience, because I want queer folks to read it and see themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with this book, like the main characters are demi-ace. And I don't see a lot of romances like that. They exist, but I think that talking about romance in speculative fiction, and having it be demi-romantic or asexual, is something that I wish there was more of.
Mm-hmm.
But like I also know that because it's, traditionally published and it's, gonna have a not just, how do I put this? Not like there's going to have an eclectic amount of people who are exposed to it. There will be people who are not queer. So I do need to put some kind of explanation in, like, okay, for those of you who are joining us, like here
Yeah.
is here's to keep you up to snuff. But like after reading Isaac, I'm like, dang, I wonder what this next book's gonna look like. Like it just I love like reading other people's work and like growing from it, or like having questions about your own work afterwards. Like I just love evolving. It's great.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So you do a little bit of explaining.
A little bit.
Okay. And
But it's
go ahead.
okay. Oh, I was just gonna say, but it's for sure like this is a queer world. These are queer characters. Like if one does not want that or understand that, then it's not going to get watered down. Like it is what it is.
Okay.
And we're characters.
So along those same lines, how has the LGBTQ plus community supported or influenced your journey as an author?
Yeah, I mean, I think very well. Like, I every time that I step into a queer space, it's like coming home. Like, I got to go to Read Out this past February, and it was fantastic. I'm really excited to go to GCLS again this year. Um, the queer spaces in speculative fiction have been so supportive, and like even here in Minnesota, I got to go to a writing retreat with Queer Voices. There's a group called Queer Voices, and they had this writing retreat that they do, where they take like 6 or 7 authors like out into the woods of Minnesota and like pay you to sit there for half a week and just like write and talk and create with one another and workshop and learn.
How
And
cool.
it was so healing. Like
Yeah.
it's so fun. Like it always feels like a big hug being in a group of queer authors and readers.
Oh, that's so cool. Does sound like a lot of fun. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah. What a great experience.
Oh
So,
yeah, it was beautiful.
and who's your publishing house? Who are you published with?
I'm with Tor.
Tor. Okay. And like when you first were looking for a publisher, what was it like to navigate that world as an LGBTQ plus author? Like, were you looking specifically for an LGBTQ plus publishing house, or were you looking for like more of a mainstream? Like, how did you navigate that?
Yeah, so I was just a wee babe. I mean, I was glad to be here. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I yeah, I mean, I got an agent, and she was like, "We're gonna send this out," and I was like, "Sounds good." And then Tor offered 2 weeks later with a preempt, so it's just kind of like, "Oh, well, that's where we're going."
Wow,
Um,
that's great.
and so yeah, no, like I before getting the agent, before having the book, I had entered the speculative fiction space through short stories.
Hmm.
And so I had gone to like the Nebulas and Worldcon and like really fell in love with those kinds of stories. So I was like, well, I want to end up in a place that will understand me as a queer person and also understand that I'm writing speculative fiction. Because I also went to a MFA program, and not all programs um, understand speculative fiction or see it as something that has value.
It's not
Um,
legit, right?
yeah, exactly. So I wanted to make sure that it was a publisher that would see me for who I am and also see
Yeah,
the work for what it was doing. So
yeah,
that was good.
yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great that you found that so readily, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I was very lucky.
yeah, definitely. So, in your spec fic world, like, did you start out doing like fan fiction? Like, I think a lot of speculative fiction authors have their roots in fan fiction. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that happened.
yeah.
Um, like when I was in junior high and high school. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I also, I also was writing my original stuff that like I had like this like at the age of 12 I was like so hell bent on writing this like 6 book Arthurian epic.
Yeah.
Um that like I go back and I look at it, I'm like, okay, a 12-year-old was writing it, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
Um so I was always working on something usually bigger than I could chew.
That's awesome. That's how you grow and learn, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. So, are you working on anything right now?
Yeah, I don't know how much I could talk about it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my next book is like I call it like my rage book, my millennial book.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll say that. It's very millennial. It's very
Okay. All right. All right. I get that. I get that. Yeah. And it's I understand not talking about it. Yep, you don't want to give anything away. Share your trade secrets. Uh, so, wow. Wow. So when can we hope to see the new work?
Oh, good Lord, that's a good question. We'll see how fast I can write.
Okay.
Um, That's a really good question. I know that I'm going to be in an anthology next year about the world of Oz, which I'm really excited about. And actually, tomorrow, July 1st, I have my final essay coming out in Uncanny Magazine. I did three essays called the Disney Essays, where I talk about Disney theme parks and Imagineering through the lens of a creative writing professor. And we talk about craft, different craft elements. And tomorrow's will be the conclusion, where we talk about appropriation and who has that microphone when telling a story. So,
Wow.
yeah,
And what magazine is that?
that's Uncanny Magazine.
Uncanny. Okay. So
Oh.
listeners can check that out. And when is the Lighthouse at the Edge of the World going to be released?
Yeah, so it comes out in the US on July 29th and outside of the US and Canada on July 31st.
Okay, great. And that's with Tor Publishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All
Yep.
right, awesome. So, listeners, be sure to check out The Lighthouse at the Edge of the World by JR Dawson. I think you're going to like it. And, also, I would encourage you to check out JR's first novel, The First Bright Thing, that is a double Goldie winner right out of the gate. So, it's a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That is great. Great for you really. And so Jen, do you have any parting words for our listeners today?
Oh man. Well, the world's on fire. How about your no? On fire. I I think that it's important for all of us to remember to continue to breathe, and that it is okay to find joy in small things, and to have happy moments even while we are resisting and surviving and heat waving, and
Yeah.
that joy is an act of resistance, to take care of each other and yourself.
Yeah. I do believe that joy is an act of resistance because I think this regime, if you will, wants us to be unhappy and really just miserable, right?
Mhm.
I
They're
kind
doing everything they can.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I like that. Joy as an act of resistance. That's wonderful. So JR Dawson is with us today, and that is all the time we have. But listeners, be sure to check out JR Dawson's soon to be released book, The Lighthouse at the Edge of the World. I think you're going to like it. It comes out in the US on July 29th, and everywhere else in the world, it comes out on July 31st through Tor Publishing. So, JR, thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a pleasure talking with you. And I hope you come back someday.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is all the time we have. And I'm Anita Kelly. And thanks for joining Liz Talk About Books, baby. And until next time, may your journey be lighthearted. Peace be plenty and be safe, folks.